Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Joseph. We're going to be doing a review for the test. Most of the questions I'm going to address are circles, so I'm going to skip around in this review. This first one is a circle, and it says find the measure of angle x. One thing to notice about angle x is that's called a central angle. So we know that if we know this arc out here, which is arc BC, that whatever measurement this is will be equal to x. So angle x equals the measure of BC. So if we look here, we have 84 and 140. So we can definitely find BC because we know a circle has 360 degrees. So if we do that math, 360 minus 140 minus 84, we should get the answer to what our arc is, which is 136 degrees. Since this is 136 degrees and this is a central angle, which as you can see, it forms that arc, we know that this is 136. That is the answer to our first question. This next one, we're going to find angle x, which is this angle here. So some things I like to do when I'm looking at this is just kind of ask myself what kind of angle is x. This is called an inscribed angle. An inscribed angle is when you have two chords that touch the outside of a circle. So I know that if I find AB, that angle x is going to be half of it. So my goal is to find x. I see that it's inscribed. I know that the angle is going to be half of the arc that it forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a different color and look at the information that's given to me, which is angle AOB, which is 80, which means that arc AB is 80, because once again, the 80 is a central angle. So that means my x is 40 degrees, since that's an inscribed angle. So just being observant, you're able to deduce a lot of the information. So next we move on to this circle. As for x, a lot of us want to say this is the center, but unfortunately this is not true. First of all, it doesn't look like the center, and second of all, it doesn't say it's the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself what is given to me. I know that I have this arc and this arc that is formed by two intersecting chords. These are chords, remember, from one end of a circle to the other, and we say they're intersecting because they intersect each other. So there is a theorem that says that if I take the average of the two arcs, that is going to tell me the interior angle, which is 60 degrees and 60 degrees. These are called vertical angles, so if you find one of them, you know that the other one is automatically x. However, the problem doesn't ask for x, and that's something you have to be careful because a lot of people want to select 60, but it's not 60 because that's not what it asked for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look over here, and I know that any straight line forms something called a straight angle. So that purple line is 180 degrees. And if I subtract 60 degrees, that gives me 120 degrees, and that is what y is. And that's how you do that problem. The next one is this lovely shape right here. So what we call x is we call this an exterior angle. These are two secant lines, and remember, a secant line is when you touch the circle twice. So whenever you have an exterior angle, the theorem that we need to know is that the bigger arc minus the smaller arc divided by 2 is going to give us this exterior angle out here, which is x. So a lot of this is kind of hard to know, like, why it's true. So when you use some technology and you're able to kind of zoom in and zoom out and move angle X in and move it out, you see why it's true. But for this test, what I would recommend is just being observant of like what's happening. Like I see an exterior angles, I have two of the arcs, so I know to use this formula. So that is the four theorems we used so far. I think there's one more. I got two ahead of myself, sorry. So there's this one right here, which says that O is the center and is 141 degrees. So one line that we haven't talked today about is something called a tangent line. So when a tangent line touches a circle at one spot, which it does right there, and it does right there, and the lines are being formed from the center, and from the center, that this is going to form 90-degree angles. And this is one of the unique definitions that is true of any tangent line that intersects with a radius that's from the center. So when we do this, I hope you notice that this is called a quadrilateral. And for a quadrilateral, the four angles add up to 360 degrees. So what the theorem says to find x is all you do is 180 minus 141 to give you x. X equals 39 degrees. Or if you want to look at it in a different way, it's 141 plus 90 plus x, which gives you 360. If you do the math, you're going to get the same thing. But the one thing that you know is always true is that if this is 90 and this is 90, that's always going to add up to 180. So to find the other one, you're just going to have to subtract. So that's how we do that one, and we get an answer of 39. So these are all the circle theorems that you need on the test. And when I keep scrolling, I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to scroll down to this bigger picture down here because this is our end game pretty much, is trying to do something that's a little bit more complicated. So let's try to see if we can use the 5 things we learned to do this one. So what is given to us is saying that D is the center and that the radius is 5, and answer the problem. And they gave us some measurements. If I zoom in, you can see that they give us 60 and they give us 40 degrees as well. So the first question is BAC. So BAC, once again, this is a inscribed angle, so I know that's going to be half. Also, feel free to stop this video and to do it yourself first, or if you've already done your homework, that's great because you can kind of check your work also. So that's how we do the first one. So I'm going to erase this line for a second and leave that. I'll leave the 30 degrees there, but I'll erase this. So the next one says, what is AC? So I always like to highlight what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for AC, and I know that BC is 60. So this question tells me something important, which is that D is the center. So I know if a line goes through the center, that is called the diameter. And I know that it splits this circle into two halves of 180 degrees. So I know that AC has to be 120 because 120 plus 60 is 180. So I know that it's 120 degrees. So next is going to be EDB, which I'll use a different color, green. EDB. This one is not bad at all because we know that this is a central angle. So we know that this is going to be 40 degrees. So that was nice. And then it says what is EA. Once again, based on the same reason as before, we know that the purple and let's name it the gray, that since the diameter is splitting in half, we know those need to add up to 180. So we know that EA is 140 degrees as well because those two should add up to 180. So now we need to find other things. So as you can see, it's getting a little messy now, just a little bit. But the next question is DAG. So I'm going to try to get a brown. DAG. And it's saying something that DEF is also the same. So DEF, so I'm going to use a black and describe the angles they're describing. So I hope y'all notice that both of these are 90 degrees because this is a center, our radius is coming out, and this is the tangent line. So remember, a tangent touches a circle once, and it's coming from the center. So we know those are 90. So now the question is, what is EDA? So EDA is this right here. So the nice thing about this is we actually know what the purple is. We know that EA is 140 degrees, and we know that EDA is a central angle. So I'm just going to erase this. It's just a lot right now, so let me erase this real quick just to kind of give you a quick recap. We are trying to find this EDA. We know this is 90. We know this is 90. We know that this right here is 140 degrees. Okay? So I want you to see that it's a central angle because if you go from D and you go out, that D is central and 140 is out there. So that also has to be 140 degrees. So this is 140. And as you can guess, the next question is going to be EGA, which is this whole angle right here. And if you remember the last problem that we did with the quadrilateral, you kind of have something like this. We know this is 140. We know this is 90. That was not neat. 140. This is 90. This is 90. So we know that this outside has to be 40. And that's what that is right here. Okay. And the last question is, what is ABC? So ABC, which we know is an inscribed angle. And I think earlier we said that this right here was 120 degrees. So we know that this here is 60 degrees. So that's how you do this. I think the way that I built this gave you information as you went. I didn't include everything in this picture. I just realized I didn't really do the intersecting chords or the major arc minus the minor arc divided by 2. So those two were not in this example. So just to clarify which two I'm talking about, you didn't see this shape in that one, and you didn't see this shape in that one. So on your test, you should definitely expect these on the big picture. So just be aware of how these look and when you notice them. So what are some other questions that I think that we should go over? I think standard deviation is definitely one that we can discuss. So if we look at number 7, it says suppose a population of individuals has a mean weight of 160. So I'm actually going to write 160 in the middle and a standard deviation of 30. So I know that I can add 30 and subtract 30, add 30 and subtract 30. And I'm kind of making my curve like that. Um, and I didn't even answer. I didn't even look at what the question is asking yet. It says, what percent of the population will be between 100 and 220? So I'm going to highlight 100 and 220. I know if my line is here, that from here to here is 68% of the population, and that from here to here is 95%, based on a normal distribution curve. So that's why the answer here is 95. Number 8 says in a normal distribution, the mean, median, and mode all have the same value, and the graph of the distribution is symmetric. This is true. That's what makes this graph unique, is that it shares all these characteristics. I think something hard about this unit sometimes is just there's a lot of kind of background information that you don't know how it's came about. But just know that having all these characteristics is what makes this shape so important. So let's see if there's anything else that I really want to talk about. Number 10 could be one. A researcher wants to find out whether higher levels of certain drug given to experimental rats would lower the time it took for them to complete a given maze to find food. Um, why would a researcher have to carry out an experiment rather than an observational study? So, I first want to say that an observational study, you have no influence. You are watching or recording. You are not manipulating things in order to kind of focus on one specific parameter or variable. So, for instance, here I want to know about this drug and if it has an effect on their timing. So, in order to do this, I would need to have a control group. You can give them a fake drug or no drug. It's just your control group. Like, what would the rat do in a normal uh, situation? And your treatment group would be to give them a drug. And here you have an influence because you have created two groups. You are giving a group no drugs or fake drugs, and you're giving another group a drug, and you can see um, what this drug has done and make a conclusion based off that. With the observational study, you're just more watching, more recording. You don't influence other things that might have an effect on the results because you're not always going to know. So that's why you need to do an experiment if you want to isolate something and to study it on its own. And let's see if there's anything else. Um, this question, it says a questionnaire is designed to determine whether most people are or not in favor of legislation protecting the habitat of the spotted oil. Give two examples of poorly worded questions, one biased towards each response. So I just want you to understand the importance of neutral questions. If you ask a question that leans towards one way, it's not really a great question. You're truly not going to get great results that are true. So, for instance, if I think I said something like, humans, I won't even write it down, I'll just kind of say it. Humans have caused so much harm to our environment. Um, do you think Do you think that we should do more to protect the habitat of spotted owls? Uh, by saying this question this way, I kind of implied that we have done really bad things, that we should feel guilty about what is happening to our environment, to habitats of animals, and that we should do something about it. So, with me saying that, I'm kind of influencing what people will respond by trying to make them feel guilty. Um, Another question that you can ask if you're on the other side is with the economic troubles that we are seeing during our times, do you think it would be wise to have legislation protecting the habitat of owls? So, with this question, it's just saying that is this really important? Do we really want to waste our time and money on owls when there's so many other things that we can do? Just kind of makes people think, like, huh, owls are important, but my bills are more important, or having enough support for my kids are more important. So just the way that you ask these questions can have an influence on the results. So that's all I have for you. I mean, that's mostly what the test is about. I think the biggest areas students struggled with are circles. So I would definitely have my cheat sheet and always go back to these first five examples. You need to understand these first five examples really well. And if you do, then you can move on to the bigger problems and just go from there. I hope this video helps, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.